Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. We're going to do an update on platinum today. It is January 26, 2023. And this is really important, especially if you're a precious metals person. Platinum is essentially front-running something like a gold or silver in that it is now undergoing its first multi-week pullback, right? Its first like weekly cycle decline, as you would call it, right? And so where that ends, what level that ends at, if it holds a higher low, is going to be incredibly important to understand. And so let's look at platinum. And again, this gives us a blueprint for what we would expect to happen, or not necessarily expect to happen, but how a cycle decline plays out, right? So platinum had this nice, robust daily cycle that topped out on day 51 and then had a low on day 80, which really was just kind of a meandering. Like it wasn't like a waterfall down, right? This is really just a bull flag that then broke up. But here we've topped early, right? We topped out on day 12 of the next cycle. Like right, and if you're new to this channel, welcome. We focus on trends here because that's what price does, right? It either trends up or it trends down or it's moving in some sideways fashion. Understanding which of those three things it's doing is how you make money in the market. Whether you're an investor, a trader, whatever you want to call yourself, you need price to go up if you're long, assuming you're long, to make money. Obviously, you need price to go down to be short. And so understanding how price goes up and how price goes down is incredibly important. That's trend analysis, right? And so the cycles are just a way of helping us quantify that. Take a look at the pinned comment. Ton of great resources for you there. But you can see we've started a downtrend here since this high on day 12. And when I say day 12, I basically mean how many days have we rallied since this swing high, or excuse me, since this swing low. Again, there's a whole video that goes through what a swing low is, how to sort of find one in real time. But in this case, this candle marks the swing low because it marks the low, and then this next candle crosses above it. Once a subsequent candle crosses above it, above the high, I should say, you have your swing low. And then we rallied for 12 days, right, into a top here. And then we pulled back. We had a short little rally that just broke down. That's just another way of saying that's a lower high. So we had this downdraft, this low, then we had this little feeble rally, and now we have two down days that are threatening to make a lower low, like something like that, right? And we expect another little feeble rally, another lower low. So the daily cycle is going to decline here. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be exactly 80 days like this one was, right? These cycles do tend to be long, right? We had one back here that was 82 days. This was 62. You know, some of them sometimes are in the 60-ish day range. So, and at the same time, we always have multiple cycles at play at the same time. So it's currently day 23, but it's also, we're also part of a weekly cycle as well. We're also in a weekly cycle, I should say. And the previous weekly cycle was very left translated, because it only rallied for 6 days. Same concept we were talking about on the daily, they apply on every time frame, right? And so this was your weekly cycle low. That was the week of April 22nd. We had a little rally for just a tiny rally for 6 weeks. We make this swing high once we cross below the low of this candle, because actually this candle makes a slight higher high. So once we move below the low of this candle, which marks the top of the rally, that begins our downtrend. And you can see we move lower. We make a low, we have a little rally, that's a lower high, we make another low, which is a lower low, and that is our cycle low. So this whole thing lasted 18 weeks. Another way of saying that is it rallied for 6 weeks and it declined for 12 weeks. So easy math, right? So it actually declined for twice as long as it rallied. That's very bearish. Coming out of that weekly cycle low, we've had this beautiful, huge rally for 19 weeks, right? 19 weeks. That is what we were just looking at right now on the daily time frame. This is just the weekly version of that, right? So we've had 19 weeks of an uptrend on the weekly chart. And as of this week here, week 19, well, the line is already here, actually. I had already drawn it. So once we cross below the low of this candle here, that marks a weekly swing high, and that's one of the real ways you get an edge, is by monitoring multiple time frames and understanding how they intersect based on price action, right? how does the daily chart impact the weekly chart, and how does the weekly chart impact the monthly chart, etc. Right? And so the same way we expect a downtrend on a week daily chart, we're gonna see something similar on the weekly, right? So something maybe like this. And based on the lengths of previous cycles, we could expect a cycle low somewhere around week 30, which will be around March 27th, right? Like the week of March 27th. Now, here's the cool thing about that. If we think we're going to get a 30-week cycle, it's logical to assume that that is going to mean that we're going to get a, call it 60-ish day cycle, right? Like, look at that. Look at how that works, right? So, that's really nice, because what that does is it tells you, right, again, that multiple time frame analysis, you can't have a weekly move without having a daily move, right? So this daily downtrend is what's going to cause the weekly downtrend. And if we know how long this whole weekly cycle is likely to be, and this is just an estimate, there's no reason why it has to be 30 days, 30 weeks. It could be longer, it could be shorter. This is just a scenario that we can plan for and adjust as we see things change. If it looks like it's actually 28 weeks, we adjust accordingly, or 35 weeks, etc., right? And so if you think about that, so wait, that takes us to the week of March 27th. So you could easily see this thing have a 66-day cycle that ends around the week of March, the week of March 30th, which will be perfectly consistent with what we've seen kind of in the past. Again, doesn't mean that's what we have to see, but it's a scenario that we could see play out. So that tells us to be ready for a potential downtrend, right? Like into, let's say, late March, right? And so if we look at the monthly chart, it's going to be really important here that like we don't break structure on the monthly chart, because as the highest time frame, the monthly chart, or I should say of these time frames we're discussing, the monthly is the most important, because that's how we know if we're in a long-term move or a short-term move, which is to say, look at this massive rally. That is a massive rally. I'll just kind of zoom in on it a little bit. So just to be clear, that's from September 2001 to March 2008. And of course, the global financial crisis caused, this huge cascade down. I mean, look how clean this is in terms of the price action, right? This is a monthly chart. We make this low here, and then we pop up and make a high. What kind of high is that? That's right. It's a lower high on the monthly chart. That's a big signal, because a lower high on the monthly chart means you're making lower highs on the weekly and the daily and obviously the hourly, etc. But knowing that that's happening on the monthly chart and understanding what's likely to happen on the lower time frame to cause that on the monthly is huge. Then you get this cascade lower. But then you have this really nice clean uptrend, right? And a pretty shallow decline and a little sort of period of chop. But if you think about this kind of move, this is the kind of thing I like to trade. This is what this channel is all about, right? A move that's going to last a really long time. Since that really bullish move, we can see very clearly on the chart, we've been in a downtrend, right? We made this high here at 2,300 basically in 2008. And ever since, price has trended lower. Like, look at these. That's a high. That's a lower high. That's a lower high. That's a lower high. Oh, wait, that's not a lower high anymore, right? That's the February 2021 high that we made. That was a higher high compared to this high, and actually this one too. So we took out previous resist. So this was a high at 1041, which we're right around that area now. And this was a high at 1194, which we're obviously well below now. And so that's just that is an added degree of risk to this whole thing, right? Because the notion here is that we've made a long-term cycle low here, right? In September 2022, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a very early high, right? Like this cycle here that we think just bottomed, that started in March 2020 from the COVID rally. Like you can see this huge plunge lower kind of starts this new cycle, this big boom up. The rally only lasted 11 months, right? So we rallied from I guess starting April 2020 to February 2021. And then we started this insipid decline, like this, insidious decline, this boom, fake out, slight lower low, and a lower high. Big fake out. Not a lower low, so we're kind of in a range now. Now we're kind of in a range. Okay, now we have a lower low, right? So that's what I mean by kind of insidious. It wasn't as like sort of clean. Like you really, this was a big fake out. What month was that? That was the March 2022 rally. That's also where gold peaked, I believe, right? Yeah, that like just $5 below its previous high. So what you're in danger of, to be very clear, is that this decline that's just starting now, this weekly cycle decline, becomes another lower high. That's what you're worried about, right? And I should say that's what you want to guard against. That's what you want to be careful of. So now this candle, this is the January candle, is about to close in about 5 days. So we'll probably get rescued in a way, but it's on pace to make a low below the low of December, which is 971. Now, will it hold that low or become a wick? That's going to be the real question, because really, you really just don't want to break this level here where this line is at 943. And when I say you don't want to break the level, to be clear, it means you don't want to stay below the level, right? So like imagine we don't get too much more downside, and then in March we do something like this. Or excuse me, in February we do something like this. But then in March we do something like that, right? The rally's back on, right? Like once, I'd say really, it's back on once we're back above this line, right? Like that's your buy signal, the recapture of this, right? Because this then becomes a false breakdown of this key level. And why is this level key? It's because it makes September a swing low. It makes September the potential long-term cycle low for platinum and also other precious metals as well. I think it's all connected. It's not sort of in a vacuum. So this decline is going to need to remain above 943.49. It's really that simple. And again, when I say above it, it can go below it. That's fine as long as it recovers. And obviously, the longer we stay below it, the less likely we're going to recover. And what you might look for is that level becoming sort of resistance. Now, to be clear, that's the high of the candle that marks the low. The actual low itself is 796. So we can find ourselves in a world where, like, to be crystal clear, we find ourselves in this kind of zone here where we're below the high. Like we're basically in the range of the September candle, which is supposed to be our long-term bottom, and that's between 946 and 799. So a pretty wide range, almost $150. So it's going to be really key to kind of watch that price action, and that's important for you to know about, right? And understand how is price behaving on those lower time frames, on the daily, on the weekly, if and when we're inside this zone. So below, again, 943.49, which isn't that far below here, especially, again, if you're expecting, so just to be clear, the top was week 19, last week was week 20, this was week 21, right? So if you're expecting a 30-week cycle, you're going to have some, it wouldn't be surprising that you break below 943. It's really going to be a question of what kind of strength do you see sort of coming out of that. So that is our update on platinum. We'll leave it at that. I will do a separate video on PLG, and I think that one is actually more correlated with palladium than platinum, but I know this is one that is a little bit of a fan favorite. This thing has just been, I won't give away too much here. I'll do a separate video. Definitely you can find the link on the channel, but thank you for watching.